EAGLES, Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Thursday morning edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen, back live with another edition for you guys. We got two of them left this week, today and tomorrow, and then we will have off on Monday, obviously, for Memorial Day. And then Tuesday, we will get back in action for the OTOs, the start of OTAs. So no show on Monday, just a little programming note for all of our listeners. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Thursday morning, my friend?
Doing well, doing better than Nolan Smith this morning. News breaking that he was arrested for, going 137. Boy, I don't know. We were talking before we popped on here. The 20 plus people have been arrested from the Georgia program for driving offenses over the past couple of years, dating back to 22, 23, something like that. So we all talk about Kirby Smart and his players and how they fit in so well in Philadelphia, and the Eagles love the program. Well, there's something else going on with that program that needs some wrangling, and this is it. We know the most high profile of those 20 plus issues is Jalen Carter. And that was, the loss of a life. So that's pretty significant. But you think about the league, you think about Henry Ruggs, which ironically just had a probation hearing. And what happened with him. He's not a Georgia guy, but I don't know. I said, you're the racing guy. You're better. I mean, these guys get hyped up on their whips at going 137. I mean,
stupid, yeah. It's stupid, man. It really is. It's stupid.
And they got a lot to lose.
Save that for a private, a private area. You have the general public out there. You should never be doing that. But John, what do you think the impact is of this on Nolan as a player, just from your reporter standpoint? He does get clocked here. He gets arrested going 135. It was in a 70-mile-per-hour zone. It happened at 10:41 in the evening on Friday. That was in Twiggs County in Georgia. All right, I assume maybe Nolan's from there. I'm not sure. I'd have to check that. But 135 and a 70. What's this mean, John, for Nolan? I mean, I understand it's not. I don't think it means he's going to miss time or anything like that. But I do think it will change maybe the perspective of the organization to some extent. Maybe that's just my speculation. How do you see it, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, I agree. It's not, it's not going to cost him a time, or he's not going to get cut or anything of that nature. Luckily, nothing happens other than, him getting arrested for reckless driving and that nobody's injured. So, get a slap on the wrist and all that. But from an evaluation standpoint, you add it into the mix, and let's be honest. And going in, are you locked up Jonathan Grenard? You can probably pay one of two, and we bandied back and forth. I had already leaned more towards Jalen Hunt. I've switched, and this only helps that argument. If you got to make a decision between those two players, taking Jalen Hunt, not only because of the ceiling, but because he's kept his nose straight. He's out there going to AJ's wedding and things like that. The worst part of the year for NFL coaches and when guys are away from the facility. And that's another thing. The Eagles have OTAs. So, guys go in and out, and we're barely down there anymore. So we can't tell you who's there from day to day. And it's not that big of a deal. Sometimes you got to go home, and he's from Savannah. I don't know if that's Twiggs County. I'm not familiar with Georgia, maybe, but he's a Georgia guy. And maybe he had to be home, and it's just a visit home, and that's fine. But, don't get in trouble. Don't go 137, 135. I don't know why I have 137 in my head, but is it that hard? And we don't know. Maybe it was maybe it is a rural area. Maybe nobody's there.
137 though, John. I mean,
well, no, I'm not. I think it's absurd. You know, if you want,
I mean, even if it's a rural area, dude, go to the track. There's tracks all over the place. There's places all over the place where you can take your nice fast cars and go and drive them. I mean, I don't know. I don't have. Yeah,
all it takes is one person.
I mean, I just don't know. Like you said, they have so much to lose. You would, and all of the instances of this happening around him, not only with players in the NFL, but his teammates, players that he has close relationships with. A guy that he lines up next to every week in Jalen Carter, damn near changed his life. At some point, you have to learn that, even if the lesson does not happen to you. You know, you learn it from the people who it happens to around you. So, it's definitely an unfortunate circumstance. And I'm of the belief that Howie Roseman will, I don't know if he'll publicly hold it against him, but I think he will hold it against him when it comes to, making a decision on his future.
Well, I'll say this today, May 21st, walking into the Jefferson Health Training Complex, I'm sure the Eagles are pretty sure that what their decision is going to be down the road. There's time to change that. Obviously, you're in an industry where talent will be forgiven more. The old Jimmy Johnson quote that I always use, I love, I'll treat you all fairly, but I'm not going to treat you all the same. So if he goes out there and has 13 sacks, the Eagles will change that mindset pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, this is the kind of stuff when you have to make decisions, you lean on and say, well, we could trust this guy. Can we trust this guy? Could be as simple as that. But yeah, obviously not a positive development. Could have been worse. Hopefully he learns from it. 20, I don't know what's going on with that Georgia program, but obviously there's a bunch of people interested in the same stuff. It's glorified Fast and Furious movies, blah blah blah. And, they're young people. They're
power in cars today is not what it once was either, dude. I mean, 350 horsepower, 400 horsepower used to be a crap load in these cars. Now we're up to 700, 800, 900 horsepower in these cars. Dude, these are like weapons, these things. Some of these cars. You got to be responsible with them.
Yeah, and they're young people. And I try to remember I was an idiot when I was young as well. So I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. But when so many issues happen in one particular program, I mean, I start to look at Kirby Smart and I'm like, dude, you got to do something. And even if that's kicking out a 5-star recruit, kick out a 5-star recruit. I'm not going to do that, but lock it down. I don't know. It's just dumb. There's not much more to say about it than it's just dumb. And luckily nobody was hurt, and he'll get whatever fine he gets. And maybe because it's his second time, maybe the NFL pops him the game or something, but no more than that. And then hopefully it's back to business. But yeah, I think it changes the needle between him and Jalen Hunt. They're not going to be able to sign them both. So that's the tiebreaker. That's the tiebreaker.
I don't know what the level of what the level of ramifications could be for something like this, John. It's obviously a reckless, but I don't think jail time or anything like that would be on the horizon. I'm not really sure. I don't think so. With no other issues other than the speed he was going, like you mentioned, there was no crash, no fatalities, nothing like that or anything. So I don't really know what the protocol is going to be for him. I guess we'll have to see what that looks like. This happened last Friday, I believe, was the report, is what I read. It just came out, just was reported last night, but it did happen last week. So I don't know what's next for him in terms of the legal situation, which may or may not impact OTAs and things of that nature.
Well, I don't think the Eagles will just lean on the league and the legal process, the legal lean on that. And again, I think it's going to be more than a no more than a slap on the wrist, because luckily nobody was hurt. And I mentioned Henry Ruggs because that's the most notable one. I should have mentioned because it's more recent. Rashee Rice. I mean, look at what's going on with Rashee Rice.
Right.
For his crash, it all started with his crash in Dallas and racing on a freaking highway, like a public highway. So talk about the stupidity there. And then, he got a 30-day jail sentence that was at least put off, any violated his probation with smoking marijuana, and now he's in jail.
Whenever I hate to do it, but whenever the weed thing comes up, I always think of Stephen A. Stephen, have you ever heard him do that? Stephen A. Stay off the weed. I always think of that.
Well, obviously weed is more prevalent now, but I can't seemingly walk out in public without smelling it. So,
especially in New Jersey, it's not as bad yet in PA. I don't think there's shops everywhere. New Jersey, that's all over the place.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. But it makes you sometimes you think, you're out there. Think about when you're out going somewhere. I got to go down there today, the Jefferson Health Training Complex. So, think about how many people you just trust when you're driving around, that they're not completely fucked up and they're just going to run a red light or whatever. Maybe don't think about it, because if you do think about it, you might never leave your house again, especially if you're in Jersey and you walk out of your house and all you smell is weed. But anyway.
My pops used to tell me, John, he said, it's not you I'm worried about, it's the other guy on the road. And I knew exactly what he meant when he said that. You go out on the road, John, a lot of these people, I don't know how they have licenses in the first place, J-Mac. It's a scary world out there, but it is what it is. All right, Nolan Smith gets busted for the driving offense. I will say this is fresh off of him. Remember, everybody, the Eagles just fully guaranteed and picked up that fifth-year option, which did guarantee his contract for the 2027 season, and solidifying his future here, at least for 2 more years, right, John? Is that fifth-year option? Yeah, so not this year, it's next year. So they did pick that up. Could a trade be looming? I don't know. How quickly will the Eagles act on this, or will they let it kind of die out? That's something we will find out, but definitely an unfortunate circumstance for Nolan Smith. I would like to think they will learn, he will learn the lesson, John, from this, but boy, a lot of guys, a lot of those Georgia guys, like you said, keep having this issue, and sometimes it feels like they will not learn their lesson. They'll just keep getting nipped, driving, and you hope it doesn't end in something worse.
Yeah. And now's not even the time. I always say, after mini camps, so that little dead period from, NFL GMs and coaches just don't want that phone call of guys getting in trouble in that dead period. And this isn't even the dead period, because you do have OTAs going on, but example of it could have been worse. But I do think it's interesting you bring up, if this happened before the fifth-year option, would they have picked it up? I think it would have been a conversation.
Definitely.
It's pretty low for his position, so I think they still would have picked it up, but it definitely would have been a conversation. I know that.
Yeah. Well, I think it already was a conversation, but at $13 million for an edge rusher in today's NFL, that's a bargain, even for a guy that's not, not a starter, or maybe a 2 or a 3. But I definitely think they would have had some more conversation on that, Johnny Mac. Not sure that they would have picked it up. Hard to speak, obviously, for Howie, but look, John, I'm trying to think right now. You'd have to remind me. I can't remember the last time an Eagle player has been arrested. I mean, for something, stupid. I mean, it feels like it's been a long time.
Yeah, they've done a good job with that kind of stuff compared to other organizations.
Yeah, right.
There was, and he wasn't, people don't remember it because he barely was an Eagle, but he's a Philly guy. Darryl Worley got in trouble right outside of the then NovaCare complex for driving drunk, and the Eagles quickly cut him. So I don't know if a lot of people remember that.
I remember that. Yeah, is that why he was pulled over right at the intersection, or right at the exit, wasn't he, or something like that? Yeah, he fell asleep at the wheel or something.
Yeah. And he was just off. He was picked up in the off season, but he would have been competing for a role. And they quickly moved on, which they should have. And then, I mean, Josh Huff, I remember driving with gun in his car.
Yeah, I remember that.
Got caught for speeding.
Didn't Nigel Bradham get hit for something? But that was way back.
Yeah, Nigel, the big cabana boy incident down in Miami. Great quote from Jim Swartz: "If you keep doing stupid stuff, people think you're stupid," or something like that. Paraphrasing. But overall, when you compare it to the rest of the league, it's been pretty good, I would say.
Yeah, but that's also why I think the Eagles won't have much tolerance for it. I don't think they're going to sit there and allow it. They seem to really prioritize and focus not only on good football players, but on people that fit their organization and their culture and are responsible men. I think that's a good thing for them to do. And maybe they don't do it as much as I'm giving them credit for, but it seems like that's what they do. And obviously this would fall outside of that. So I'm curious to see kind of how Howie handles it with everything looming with that contract. And even that position where you have a third-round player in Jalen Hurts who's playing well, and Nolan, obviously, who just got picked up his fifth-year option. To me, Jalen probably just jumped him to go to number 2 there and or at least be the guy that they would be more interested in paying long-term to keep around. But we're still too far out to determine that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I you talked about the trade part of it. I happened to see one of the Arizona reporters say that Josh Sweat is missing stuff in, Arizona because he's not happy, probably because of how bad the team is. That'd be an interesting flip. Trade a younger player for a more proven player.
Right. Bring Josh home.
Yeah.
Well, Josh is an example. Josh is I follow his other account, John. He is a car collector type of guy who has, and I'm not talking about a Porsche or a Lamborghini. I mean, Josh Sweat has some of the most elite cars money can buy. I mean, he's got Paganis and Koenigseggs but I don't see any 135s and a 70 for Josh Sweat.
Yeah, he's never gotten in trouble. Maybe some weed with Josh.
Yeah, right. Maybe we got to cut him some slack for some weed. Yeah. He almost lost his damn leg, didn't he? At one point in his life. So.
Almost, yeah. And he also had that before the Tampa Bay playoff game. He had that artery inside. He had to have it cauterized. Yeah, that was scary stuff, man.
Josh and Jonathan Grenard, Curtis says in the chat, is that boy? All of a sudden, that edge group is looking good with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, well, I shouldn't even have brought it up because now people will run with it. But I just happened to see one of the Arizona reporters. Say
I saw it too. He didn't go to. He wasn't at the mandatory thing, right?
Yeah,
or whatever.
Yeah. OTAs at this point, but which are voluntary. So, but and the last one, looking around, is Worley. So I think that is the last one.
Wow. It's a long time ago. I guess there was that, the only other incident I can
think Jalen Carter with the shoplifting thing.
Yeah, with the Target, right? But that was
that was quickly. That was his girlfriend.
What the hell is your girlfriend doing stealing from Target?
Yeah, I
know. We don't need to relive that one, but
yeah,
that's just as stupid to me. I mean, you're sitting there. Why is your girlfriend stealing something from Target?
Yeah, the big strip club incident. That one is right after minicamp. Nelson Aguilar, Fletcher Cox, couple people involved. There was a domestic dispute at Fletcher's house in South Jersey.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
But that wasn't him getting arrested. That was some other dude.
Yeah, some other dude was there, and Fletcher called the cops and said, "I'm going to blow this guy's head off if he breaks it, if he comes closer to my home." Yeah. So Fletcher was standing his ground. I'm not sure if there's stand your ground laws in New Jersey. They don't have the best laws.
I'm sure there isn't. It's New Jersey. It's not.
Yeah, right. They're not very friendly with that stuff. So, yeah. All right, we got a couple super chats we'll read this morning. The latest news, if you're just checking in, Nolan Smith got hit with it was arrested last Friday night. It happened at around 10:15 in the evening. He was driving 135 miles an hour in a 70-mile-per-hour zone, which obviously would classify as a reckless, and he was arrested for that. We will see what that results in for him as a player and for the team as the Eagles. We will find out. Let's go to our super chats here. Alexander Harris, 250s from Alexander Harris. Thank you for your support of the channel, my man. He says, Nolan was doing 135 and a 70. He must have been doing a DoorDash order. It's very important to get that number 2 from McDonald's to the customer while it's still hot. Customer ratings matter.
I think Nolan's got enough money where he doesn't have to do DoorDash. Plus, he's got enough money to buy a car that can go 137 in the 75. Most of our cars aren't going to be able to get up there.
Here's Harris again with the $50 super chat. On the real, though, this isn't directed at you guys, but I can't wait until A.J. Brown is traded. I'm at a point where I'm tired of hearing about him over and over from other media people. Like, I get it brings in views, but, man, it's tiring to hear over and over.
Well, yeah, like I said, you got 10 more days to do the grift, so everybody's back on the grift. Well, maybe Jacksonville gets involved. Maybe the Rams get back involved. I would love to see them trade him to the Rams from a selfish standpoint.
I'd like to see him trade him to the Jags and Howie just fleeces James Gladstone. That's what I'd like to see.
I just think that would be the dumbest move in the history of the world, trading him to the Rams. But yeah, I think he's going to the Patriots. But you got 10 days to grip it up.
But do you think it's a grift to say about the other teams? I don't know, like John, I get it, but to me, it always felt like Howie's obviously going to try and get the maximum return. I don't think he's just going to.
Well, I think he's been trying to get the maximum return the whole time,
right?
And what the whole.
Yeah, but for example, like if someone calls now and they're like, "Hey, we think this could be the missing piece. We'll give you." You think that's going to be ruled out?
Or the whole Jacksonville thing is. Brian Thomas, you've already gotten Kai Lemon, you've already gotten Dontavian Wicks, you've already gotten Hollywood Brown. They don't want another receiver, so that one is silly. It's Brian Thomas and a late round pick. It's like maybe he would be better than their plan, but they're already 4 deep into their Billy Bean Moneyball plan. And aggregating him. I don't think they're shifting off that. And then the Rams, I'm like, all right, because the Rams make some sense because you speaking of off the field troubles, you have no idea what's going on with Puka Nacua. They already told Devontae Adams, look, we'd rather have A.J. Brown, and Devontae's 33 years old, so it makes sense, but my point with the Rams is, okay, you're all the schedule just came out. You're the favorite in every single home game but one, and that one is the Los Angeles Rams. So people already think the Rams are better. That could be your biggest hurdle in the NFC, which is disrespectful for Seattle, but nonetheless. And you're going to trade A.J. Brown to the Los Angeles Rams? That's like the most un-Howie thing ever. I would rip the Eagles the same as I ripped the Cowboys for trading Micah Parsons to the Packers. It's the same thing. Like, okay, they're not in your division, but you're going to fucking see them. and probably see them in a big spot where your old players can make you look like a goop ball. And, maybe it's right for Howie not to think that way and have confidence. And if you go all the way back to people were like, how could Andy Reid trade Donovan McNabb to the Washington Redskins at the time? And, Andy kind of knew he was done. So if you're telling me AJ's done and that knee's bad, all right, go do it. But other than that,
I don't know. Look, I think A.J. Brown took a step back last year, but if he goes with Matthew Stafford, I'm going to predict 1,600 yards for A.J. Brown.
I mean, I didn't entertain it the first time. It's like, why would he trade him to the Rams?
Yeah, I remember you balking at that instantly.
Other than, building up leverage and say, hey, the Rams are interested, so the Patriots give more. That part of it I get. So I'm not saying he didn't talk to the Rams. He certainly did. But I can't believe he would pull that trigger. And I still don't believe it.
Me neither, John. Jags, I could see, though. Here's Purpose Isn't Passing. What's up, brother? Good to have you in here. If I remember correctly, I think Purpose Isn't Passing was one of the original guys who dubbed Johnny Logic. Here it is. Good morning, guys. I've been going to work earlier, so I've been watching the show in the evening. Welcome back, Johnny Logic. And did you get the AC in Big Z? I did not. Not yet. Not yet. I got the old school window unit here, Johnny Mac, where if I don't, the sun beats these walls, and then like by 2:00 in the afternoon, it's just like, it's like 70, it's like 80 degrees in my office. I got to get my window unit in back here, but no, I haven't yet. Not yet. Purpose Isn't Passing. I'll get it in though. But
well, you're getting a little break. It was 96 or so. I think we set a record yesterday or the day before, but it cooled off. Storms, lost some power. Almost didn't have power back for the show this morning.
Yeah, John, almost, but we made it just in time. John, I grew up in, I was one of those homes that we didn't turn on the AC. It was open windows, and all my friends hated coming here because it was so damn hot in the summer at my house. But that's just how we grew up. My mom doesn't like air conditioning at all. She does not want it on.
My wife's the exact opposite. It's got to be on. I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate air conditioning. Now, like if it's 99, yeah, I'll turn it on, but I would prefer to have the windows open.
Yeah, that's what I grew up with. That's what we rock around here. So it is what it is. Purpose Isn't Passing. Thank you, brother. Appreciate all you guys for being here this morning. We got a good opening segment on Nolan Smith. I guess not a good opening segment for that reason, but a good opening segment nonetheless in terms of content. So we appreciate all you guys doing it. Johnny Mac, I want to take a look around some of the NFL as a whole today, and we will do that maybe a little bit into hour number 2. But I do want to look at kind of each division and maybe talk about who you think some risers and some fallers might be in the league. So we will do that. Obviously not a whole lot with Eagle Land, but we do have OTAs, John, coming up on Tuesday. So that's exciting. Like I mentioned at the start of the show, we will not have a Monday show with Memorial Day, obviously. So I hope everybody has a great Memorial Day weekend. But Tuesday's the OTAs, John. So that's what is that? Phase 3 of the offseason?
That's phase 3, yeah. The big phase. The big phase. Well, the biggest phase is mandatory mini camp. By the way, stay tuned later this afternoon. There might be some news later this afternoon that I can't talk about yet, but hopefully I can talk about it by the end of the show.
Oh, man, you leave me on a cliffhanger right there, John.
No, I want everybody to be aware, to be on alerts. Just be on alerts.
And can you tell us anything? The type of news to expect? Is it a contract? Is it anything?
Well, no, it's not a contract. It's a press conference.
Press conference. Brandon Graham?
No.
I won't speculate. I won't make you say it on the air if you can, but I have no freaking clue, to be honest with you. I got no clue what it would be.
I thought you'd get it, but
I think I'm just blanking out. I got you. Thank you, Roseman. The great and legendary Sean Mannion, I guess, would be the guest. We will see if that comes to fruition.
I do not know.
All right. Purposes and Pat says, you are correct. I was the one that came up with it, Johnny Logic. Love that it's sticking sticking on the show. I love it.
And yeah, I appreciate it because I got a cool logo out of it.
Yeah, the logo is fire. I got to get it on a shirt. Even John grilled me for not having more merch, so I got to get it on the shirt. All right, respect it. We'll do that. We'll try and get that sucker on a shirt with the Birds 365 logo on there. It'd be pretty cool. But all right, guys, appreciate all you guys for doing it today. John, with the potential of a press conference happening later today, we will find out if it does happen or not. We are expecting it to come up soon. Obviously with the OTA starting next week, you'll talk to not just Mannion, right? You'll talk to everybody. You'll talk to Vic. Will you get access to everybody?
Yeah.
Vic, Nick, Sean, Michael Clay, everybody else?
Yep. All of them. Potentially all of them. Not Nick, but potentially all of them.
And what do you think the most burning questions are for each of those guys?
Well, now Vic's got to answer some questions about Nolan. But, obviously Grenard, how he comes in, Tariq Woolen, Jahad Campbell coming in for a player he loves, the safety spot. So those are the obvious ones for Nick. And the coaching stuff, losing Christian Parker. Do want to ask Vic when I talked to him about Chris Cooper because he had him on his staff in Denver, and I was told that he's one of the reasons why he's here, because he recommended him so highly. So maybe he'll talk about that. Probably late, you don't want to waste that early in the press conference because you want to hear about all the defensive stuff. Sean, it's obvious, scheme, really, from my perspective, I really want to hear if he's malleable, because Jalen doesn't have a long history of doing the stuff that people want it to be. So, I think it'll be more scheme related, probably with Sean, versus player related with Vic. But that's just my thought of it. And then, Michael Clay, I think the most interesting thing with Michael Clay is, he interviewed with Tampa in the offseason. I want to hear about that more than, with the special teams guy, he doesn't even know who he has really, because he's got to wait till they cut to 53 and who's going to be available. So
well, that's a tough gig, the special teams job.
Yeah, it is. And, now he'll get the normal Jake Elliott questions and why there's no competition and stuff like that. Plus,
which isn't his fault, by the way. I mean,
no,
he'll get the questions, but he has the power to go and sign a kicker or cut Jake Elliott.
Yeah, that's a Howie question. Sometimes Michael won't do it. Like Vic would say, that's a Howie question. He would just shut it down. But, so yeah, those are the most obvious questions. And obviously the most interest will be with Sean Mannion because we haven't talked to him yet. But and I don't think you're going to get answers or anything like that, but I think it'll make people happier. And the optimistic people, and from all indications, he's a very smart guy, very sharp guy, so he's probably going to be good on his feet. And I think people are going to be happy with him. Mainly because they hated the last guy.
We'll see. We'll see what happens there, obviously, with Michael Clay, Sean Mannion, Vic Fangio. Any other questions for Vic outside of? I don't even think Nolan is a Vic question. What does that have to do with Vic Fangio? He's trying to figure out.
There's Grenard, there's Tariq Woolen, there's Jahad Campbell, there's what are you going to do with safety? There's
that's actually going to be a good one.
There's
Will they muzzle Vic, John? They'll try at least, I think.
Yeah, good luck. They're not muzzling Vic. Sometimes he doesn't want to answer a question. I think my favorite Eagles video ever, because state-run media, I don't like most of their stuff. It's edited and to make them look good. But
yeah, it is.
When they asked them questions, like they did it with Howie, they did it. I don't know if they've done it with Nick. If they did, I'm sure they did, but I didn't watch it. They did it with Vic, and they give him cards. And, he reads the card and he answers the question. There were a couple of ones he read it and said, yeah, no, throw it on the floor, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. All right, good stuff there from upcoming for the Eagles with OTAs next weekend. It'll be good to see what that looks like. Obviously, the Eagles have a bunch of new questions here with the offense as we get ready for OTAs, and we will see some of them. I don't think you'll get many answers right now, like John pointed out. Probably be hearing a lot of the new offense through the offseason, and then we'll see how quickly it changes once the season rolls around. John, I will say this real quick on that point. Doesn't it feel like they kind of have removed their fallback plans this time? Like you're right about Kellen Moore, where they ran that and then they fell back. But haven't they kind of burned the boats, or what do they call it? Yeah, burn the boats. What is what they say? Doesn't it feel like they've kind of done that? I mean, they got rid of Stoutland. There's no A.J. Brown. They got to run a new offense, it feels like, even personnel-wise, and kind of what they have in the building. Or do you see it differently?
No, I think, I think the boats you would have to burn are the offensive linemen. Now, the assumption is that, you can't count on Landon and Cam and Lane because of the injuries and age in the case of Lane, or at least as much as you could in the past. But, for everybody who takes the positive side in everything involving the new coaches and things like that, why not take the positive side with those guys? If those guys are the same players they were, which I guess is a possibility, yeah, they can lean back, and they will lean back. Now, as far as, Stoutland, I mean, that's, again, with all due respect to Jeff, the engine of that running game was the talent on the offensive line, not the coach or Nick Sirianni or Kellen Moore or Jeff Stoutland. It was those guys performing at the level they performed at.
Yeah, but he still provides a safety net, if you will, of at least thought process when you're trying to if you feel like,
well, they've already changed the thought process. I mean, they're going to run a different scheme.
I'm saying if you need to revert that thought process back to what you were originally doing, you don't think Jeff provide. I mean, you're right. Obviously, Jeff's not on the field. It's the guys on the field, but wouldn't he provide that safety net in some regard with the way they played offense?
I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal to go from stretch or outside to inside zone.
Okay.
So it'd be the same thing, like you say. Well, Ryan Mahaffey has more expertise and Sean Mannion has more expertise in this vision than Jeff Stoutland does. And Jeff Stoutland has more expertise in the prior vision. So you're right from the standpoint of, slightly more expertise in it. But at the end of the day, we're talking about outside zone versus inside zone. I mean, and the players will have all excelled at power and inside zone and pen and pull. So, I mean, that's already, I think it's more relevant if you're talking about developing players for that, and the Markel Bells of the world and the Cameron Williams and the Miles Hinton. Yeah, maybe you'd rather have Stoutland if you're going to roll back to that scheme. But I think the guys that you're counting on, they're already ready made to fall back on if they're healthy.
Well, they also made Ryan Mahaffey the tight end coach, didn't they?
Yeah.
And is he with Jason Michael, or did they get rid of Jason Michael?
Jason Michael is gone.
Ooh, Jason Michael gone. That's right. Okay. You liked Jason Michael, didn't you?
Yeah, what's not to like? Yeah,
I always thought he was one of the guys that you would bring up and be like, people never talk about Jason Michael, but he's a big part of it too.
Yeah, I mean, he was a former offensive coordinator. He's obviously had a lot of success this entire coaching staff. But that's why I'm like, it's shuffling deck chairs, really. I mean, Jason Michael did nothing to be fired. He just didn't. Nor did Scott Leffler or, I'm not going to say Kevin, because Kevin has got the big time job, and maybe they did over promote him, and maybe the job was too big for him. So I have no problem with people saying that. But as far as the position coaches who already succeeded at a high level, it's like, why are they getting fired? I guess Scott Leffler was only here for a year, so you could debate that. But Jason, I mean, he's getting fired because they had to find a spot for Ryan Mahaffey, who Sean Mannion won. That's how the NFL works. You have a new offensive coordinator. And I mean, I guess if you wanted to bend over backwards, you could have made Mahaffey the run game coordinator only and let Michael stay as the tight ends coach. But who knows? Maybe they yelled at each other one day. Who knows?
Yeah, right. It does feel like it could be as simple as that. All right, Johnny Mac, good stuff. We will find out what these guys have to say next week and what this new offense looks like. I was listening to who was it? Mike Garafolo got asked a question about this offense, and boy, I tell you what, John. I mean, I'm not saying they're all correct. I'm just saying I think it was Tom Pelissero, it was Mike Garafolo, and there was not even a question about their thought process that the Philadelphia Eagles are running a 100% new offense. I mean, they were like the conversation, the premise of the conversation was this thing is going to be drastically different. And they were all speaking about that with confidence.
Well, I've said the same thing. It's 100%. Like, I think people don't listen. It's 100%. They're trying to do it. They're trying to run this offense. They're going to try to run the Kyle Shanahan offense. That's what they're going to try to do. Where I shipped from those, that was the same mentality when Kellen Moore came in, and they shipped it. So I don't think that they're incapable of saying this isn't working. We have to do something else. That's where I differ from those people. Now, and I don't, they're going to do this by hook or by crook. I don't know if anybody has said that, because I think if they got that follow-up question, they might hesitate. I think that needs to be the follow-up. Yeah, they're 100% going to try to run that offense. If it doesn't work, are they just going to keep running it for 17 games? I think if they got that follow-up, their answer would be different. But they never get that follow-up.
Well, I think the pushback I would give you was, well, how much worse can it get? I mean, they were bottom third in the league last. They were like 25th. I mean, how much worse is this offense going to produce 28th in the NFL? And it almost doesn't feel like they can get worse.
Well, and it probably can. I've said pretty consistently, the offense is going to be better, but for a different reason than most people think. Just from good players bouncing back from bad seasons. And I said that whether Sean Mannion, whether Mike McDaniel, whether Brian Daboll, whether Josh Grizzard, whether Gerard Johnson got the job, it was going to be a better offense. Not necessarily because of the coordinator, but because of the players bouncing back from bad seasons. And there's so many layers to it. Like, I think most people think, and I'll die on this hill and people see it, the change in this offense is more about the running game than the passing game. And I don't think anybody knows that. I'm sure there's somebody knows it, but I don't hear people talking about it. All they talk about is the passing game, the passing game, the passing game. It's about fixing first down. Nick said it. People just missed it, or they just ignore it because it's not as fun to talk about. And again, if Saquon is at 1,500 yards instead of 1,100 yards, and early in the season started under 4 yards a carry, yeah, it's going to look better because you're going to be in third manageable much more than you were last year. And it's going to take care of itself. And you're going to, not that it's going to be high volume, the passing game, but it's going to be more effective because you're going to be in better situations. So there's a lot of layers to it. And I don't think they're going to completely ramp back to what they did in 2024 simply because I don't think, Landon Dickerson is going to be healthy enough to do it. I don't think I have more confidence in Cam Jurgens, but not a ton of confidence in even Lane, with his type of injury he's coming off in his age. Are you going to get a historic performance from the offensive line? I don't think so. So, they're probably not going to be able to lean back into that like they did in 2024, which is one of the reasons they're trying to shift as well. But ultimately, it comes down, is this what's best for the quarterback? And my simple answer to that is no. So, I mean, if I'm a coach, I'm building around what I have. I've said it pretty consistently. And I think you try to mesh the two as much as possible. And if that means putting them under center 8 times a game instead of 4 times a game and throwing the football from under center 5 or 6 times a game instead of 0 or 1, that's fine. That's an incremental improvement and an evolution. What I don't think you're going to see is the full-blown Kyle Shanahan offense, because I don't know why you would run that with Jalen Hurts. Just like I don't know what you would run what the Eagles did with Brock Purdy. That's why I always use that. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense to me. So I'm actually professing more confidence in the coaches than people think I am, because I think they're too smart to do that.
Right. Smart coaches don't take their best players and make them play a brand of football that they don't play well. You would think.
You would think.
Well, John,
I've never met a coach who said, I'm going to build an offense around the weaknesses of my quarterback. Now, Nick will say he can do it. He already has said. And maybe he can. And then everything's fine. There's no evidence of that. But we'll see. We'll see.
We will see. We will see what happens with this offense. I'm curious to see. John, one thing I do think that is maybe a tough needle to thread when you think about it objectively, but it seems to be a common thought process amongst the fans, is that the passing game is going to improve this year. And I look at it and I'm just thinking, so we're getting rid of our best player, A.J. Brown, potentially here. I mean, we all think he's gone at this point. A.J. Brown, and then we want to improve the passing game. Like, why do those two things not belong in the same sentence in my head, Johnny Mac? Am I off base, or does that just sound to be,
well, the vast majority, I would say, and I can't speak for all of them, but the vast majority of those people think it's Kevin Patullo's fault. And as long as you remove,
you're getting rid of your best player.
Well, most of those people think the coaching is more important than the players. Is my summation. I mean,
I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying that's a tough thing to do when you're getting rid of your best player to improve in the area where your best player plays specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. So many things have to go into improvements. The crazy thing is, like, again, this team wasn't even that bad last year.
The offense was
like the offensive line was. Well, again, if you want to go EPA per play, and we'll use Sumer Sports because that's who I trust. They were 16th, so they were dead in the middle. Should they be better? Sure. But is that terrible? No.
It felt like they were worse than that.
EPA per pass, 13th. EPA per rush, 16th. A lot of bad teams in the NFL. Did you watch Las Vegas play? It's the best. We'll use the worst passing team.
Well, if you have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Lane Johnson,
well, again, and that's what.
You're even close to the conversation of the Raiders, and then we got big problems here.
Well, I get your point. By the way, the worst passing team in the NFL from an efficiency standpoint, and I mean by a large margin, was the Cleveland Browns. Right? Makes sense. Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, just an abject disaster. The second worst team, Tennessee Titans, Cam Warren, rookie, abject disaster. The third worst team, Minnesota, J.J. McCarthy, abject disaster. The fourth worst team was the New York Jets, abject disaster in every word of the, and then comes the Raiders. And, there's actually four teams worse. Now the difference between where the Eagles were and, Houston was behind them. The Chiefs were behind them. Pittsburgh, Arizona, Miami, Atlanta, the Giants, the Commanders, the Bucks, the Bengals. Obviously didn't have Joe Burrow for a long period. Even Baltimore, Carolina, negligible. I mean, negligible difference. So you could be 13, but you could be 24 and with two bad games. So I mean, they won 11 games. If the running game was better, they would have won 13 games. That's my summation. Devontae still had 1,000 yards receiving. AJ still had 1,000 yards receiving. Dallas Goedert had a franchise record for touchdown passes. People really think this is the worst team they've ever seen. There's no evidence to back that up, other than it's ugly. It is ugly. That we can all agree on.
It was ugly when they were successful.
Exactly. I mean, I just ran down the litany of teams that were arguably even worse. And that's passing. They were actually better efficiency-wise passing than running.
And to you, just a question: you do think those advanced metrics are a lot more valuable than
the yardage? Yeah. Well, I mean, yardage they were significantly better.
What about points? I think they were super low in points per game, weren't they?
Well, it's funny because they were good in the red zone, but they're terrible in. Obviously, Goddard had the year he had in the red zone. That was the one thing they were good at. But they were terrible in third downs, terrible in 3 and outs.
Right. Which we all knew. We all watched that.
Terrible on first down, which was related to being terrible on third down. So those were the weaknesses. And that's why you're trying to fix the main weakness is first down. And I've been from the start. If you fix first down, everything else falls into place.
Yeah, you've been consistent on that one, John, per usual.
But yeah, I mean, they won 11 games, and people act like they were one of the worst teams in football. Crazy to me.
Well, I think part of that comes down to the expectations. Obviously, they came off a high with the Super Bowl year the year prior, and maybe a recalibration was in order, and I think that's what the Eagles did. But I also do think it's fair to say they fell below the standard. I mean, that was ugly. It was an ugly.
Oh, nobody's saying that. I mean, their standard is
pointing it
their standard is immensely high. I mean, it's probably too high, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because you want to, you want to strive to be the best. I don't think that's ever a bad thing. And I get, the standpoint when you don't reach expectations from an ownership standpoint, people are going to pay. That's just the nature of the industry. But, for those acting like there was no positives, I mean, you got 2 receivers over 1,000 yards. What are the odds they have 2 receivers over 1,000 yards this year?
Very low. But, you can make an argument that A.J. Brown was, really should have done more than that. I understand that's high expectations, but it almost feels like 1,000 yards today is common.
People are used to more than that.
Yeah, it's more common
with AJ. If you get 700 from Lemon as a rookie, you should be thrilled. Remember, he barely cracked 1,000. He had 1,003, but he missed 2 games. And by no means am I saying he played up to his standard, because he didn't. Devontae led the team in receiving yards. Again, Dallas Goedert in the red. Did people forget how good Dallas Goedert was in the red zone? Did people forget how good they were in the red zone during the season? Like, that was by far the best part of that team offensively, was the red zone. Once they got there.
A lot of trickery. They used a lot of trickery with it.
Yeah, a lot of innovative, a lot of unique stuff.
There's that word, J-Mac.
There you go. A lot of shovel passes, even though that's not unique. They're running plays off the tush push for touchdowns. Did people forget that?
I remember it, but that doesn't make up for all of the inefficiency.
Not saying it does. I'm just saying, it's great. Like, just like winning the Super Bowl the year prior made everybody forget the bad things. Losing in the first round in San Francisco made everyone forget the good things.
That's fair. Fair point, Johnny Mac. I appreciate you pointing that out as well. I think that's very accurate. All right, John, let's move into our next segment here. I want to thank everybody for being here today. Don't forget to hit that like button. All right, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We are a couple days out from the start of OTAs. That'll be Tuesday of next week. That'll be our first show next week, guys. Memorial Day is Monday. We will have no shows on Monday. Obviously, I know it's viewed as a celebratory day with just the time of the year it is, kicking off kind of the summer season and everything like that. But obviously a solemn day as we remember the people who lost their lives fighting for our nation. So we will have no shows on Monday. We will be back on Tuesday. John, let's move into our next segment. I want to talk a little league-wide here in the NFL. All right, we will pull this up on the screen here, and we will take a look at some of the divisions in the NFL. And I will ask you some questions about risers, fallers, sleepers, who you think might win each division. Obviously, you don't have to pin yourself down or hold yourself to any of these projections. Just kind of your early thought as we look at it today. I want to thank Eduardo in the chat who asked me this yesterday. He says, John, which teams are your sleeper teams and dark horses for both the AFC and NFC this year? I asked Zander this yesterday during Zander time, and I want to see your picks. So we will have you answer that too, Johnny Mac. So let's start right there. Let's go AFC first, John, and then we'll kind of look at each division, talk about each team a little bit. But who would be your sleeper teams in the AFC, Johnny Mac?
Well, coming off last year, I tend to look at why I kind of pegged San Francisco last year. You look at who's coming off a down year, and it could be bounce back. The two most notable teams right off the bat are Cincinnati and Baltimore. In the North, when you consider what's going on in Pittsburgh, luckily they're getting Aaron Rodgers back, but that's not a strong division champion. Cleveland not ready to compete. So I think those two teams, and if Joe Burrow's out there for 17 games, which is a big if,
yeah, right,
I'll take Cincinnati to win that division. South, I think all Houston needs to do is get competent play from CJ Stroud. I don't know if they will, and they'll win that division. I think Jacksonville kind of overinflated. They'll come back a little bit. Indianapolis is going to be interesting because they were one of the best teams in football with Daniel Jones.
What did they start? Like 7-2 last year, right? Or something like that? Yeah.
Now, is he going to be healthy? That's his second significant injury. So you have to see if he's healthy. And this is also a big year for Shane Steichen because if they have another missed playoff year, he could be looking for a job and people will be talking about bringing him back to be the offensive coordinator. Maybe.
Trip down memory lane.
So Houston and Indy, I like in the AFC South.
What do you think of the Titans? You think they can make it? I mean, obviously they're not ready to compete yet, but do you think they're above a 3-win team? Do they get to 7 or 8 this time?
Well, I do think they're above a 3-win team, but I don't like the quarterback. I don't like the quarterback at all. I just talked about EPA. They were second to last, only Cleveland. He's not ready. He's not. He shouldn't have.
John, not helping him. Bad. You really didn't have a lot around him last year.
Well, that's part of it as well. And they brought in some better skill position, but that's not the problem. Like you said, you're right to point to the offensive line first because that's always the foundation. You saw what happened to Chicago. It wasn't Caleb Williams. It was the offensive line. Now, Caleb's a part of it. He's a very good player. Still needs to be, more consistent.
Yeah, ball's going to come out.
Yeah. But, I mean, they brought in Carnell Tate. They brought in Wan'Dale Robinson, who's not great, but, they didn't get, obviously, Jeremiah Love. They just missed out on him. So that would have helped Cam Ward. But again, are you good enough on the offensive line? Probably not. But no, I don't, will they win 5 games? Because Salah's a better coach, probably, but certainly not ready to compete in that division, I would say. But they got to improve the passing game immensely. We talk about it. I mean, that's truly a poor passing offense. Like people think the Eagles are a poor passing offense. The Eagles aren't ugly at passing offense. Mediocre from an efficiency standpoint. And basically just because they had a bunch of good players, but which is disappointing. When you're mediocre with a bunch of good players, it's disappointing. They're bad with a bunch of bad players. So I don't see a lot of hope in the immediate future for the Titans other than you're starting at such a low point, you'll get a little bit better. And then the West is going to be interesting. Philadelphia's favorite player, Justin Herbert, is going to have his tackles back.
They were my sleeper. I know it's not really a great sleeper because they're a good team, but I think they could be I think they could be the number 1 seed in the AFC this year if obviously people stay healthy.
Yeah, I think Denver's defense will make them good again.
Me too. Denver will be good. I think that's gonna be a good division, actually, the West.
Kansas City, and I just think they're an old declining team. I just think they are. And then the Raiders are obviously they'll get a little bit better for the same reason as Tennessee, but not a lot better. So my teams to keep an eye on are Cincinnati and the Chargers, I would say. We're already good teams, but
yeah, right. And where do you go in the East? I know you mentioned a little bit of the East, but what do you think? I mean, I know you mentioned you think
well, the East is sort of like the NFC East, two teams and two afterthoughts, and it remains that way, even more to but Buffalo's better than New England. And then Miami's just completely ripped that thing down to the studs, with the exception of poor Devin A. Shane. And the Jets are the Jets and bringing Geno Smith back. So they'll get a little bit better from a quarterback play perspective, but obviously not going to be ready to compete.
I agree with you. All right, good stuff there. We will see what happens. I'm curious to see, too, how Buffalo is this year. Obviously, they made the changes with McDermott. Kind of felt similar, John, where it's like, I know they never got the job done, so I understand what they did with McDermott, but it's going to be hard to improve on what they've done. I mean, even 12-5 last year, it's like, all right, I mean, what's the expectation there now with Brady, the new coach, where McDermott did win a lot of football games, and I think maybe they learn the hard way, or maybe he does, provide what they need to give them that extra spark to go the distance. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think they're a Super Bowl team. I think the best teams in the NFC are better than the best teams in the AFC. So somebody's got to make the Super Bowl. But you saw last year, Seattle was just a lot better than New England. I think the same thing's going to happen this year, but I think the two teams that could potentially change that are not New England. Like they remind me a little bit of Washington. Too soon. Not Denver, although they would have been in the Super Bowl. Let's be honest. If Bo Nix didn't get hurt, they would have been in the Super Bowl. I think the two teams with a chance to get to the big game and compete are the Chargers and the Bengals.
I like it. Chargers were mine, Johnny Mac. So me and you on the same page with them. I think they have a chance to be a super good team. All right, John, rolling down to the NFC conference. Boy, you take a look at some of these divisions from last year. How about the NFC South? Not a single team in the South had a winning record or a positive point differential. I don't know how that happens. And then you go to the NFC North, not a single team had a losing record, and not a single team had a minus point differential. So there were some solid teams in the North last year. The East, the Eagles were the only team above 500 with a positive differential. Not that the differential means all that much, but I do like to look at it just to see how well a team, scored last year. And then the NFC West, obviously, three strong teams there, and one team that's not so good. But John, we'll start with whatever division you like. Here's the NFC. Look at what it was last year, and maybe start with your sleepers here in the NFC before we go division by division.
Okay, sleepers. Well, I think Dallas, unfortunately, was a sleeper.
I gave Dallas, much to the Eagles fans not being happy about it. I did give them.
Yeah. Detroit is my obvious one. They're not as good as they were, but they're still good, and they're playing a fourth place schedule because of that division. So I think they're going to win that division. And then, we'll see how strong they are. Pick your poison in the NFC South, but they're not relevant as far as being Super Bowl contenders. Somebody's got to win the division. I think Atlanta's the most talented team, but they don't have a quarterback or you're counting on who knows when Penix will be back. And then if not, you're counting on Tua, which is not something I would enjoy. And then the West.
Battle of the lefties.
The West is extremely strong at the top again. Seattle. They're going to be good. And the Rams might be I think, the most gifted team in football from a talent standpoint, from 1 to 53. I think the Rams are the top team. So, um, as far as the obvious sleeper, I think, is Detroit. I don't know if you call them a sleeper, but when you're coming fourth place one year, and then you're back at the top, obviously they still have a lot of talent. They weren't where they were when they lost to the Commanders a couple of years ago, but they're still a really good team. Minnesota with Kyler Murray. The problem is, it's a good division. So, I mean, they're gonna knock off each other, that division, but that division's good again. If you're looking for a true sleeper, similar when Sam was there, if Kyler Murray can play like Kyler Murray in the past and stay healthy, I mean, think about, they were able to win, what, 9 games? What'd they win? 9 games with JJ McCarthy at that level.
Yeah,
Third
you don't have
worst
to love
pass.
Kyler Murray to think they're going to be better than that.
Yeah. I mean, and they have Jefferson, they have Addison. Now they added Juwan Jennings from San Francisco. They still have Hawkinson. I mean, Kyler Murray's got a chance to make a lot of money, just like, like having a Sam Darnold type season. So he should be motivated as well.
I'm not sure whether he will or not, but
well, he's already made a lot of money, so maybe not. Who
Yeah.
knows? But I don't know. All these guys make all this money and then they're broke. I don't know how that happens, but I'm not saying that's Kyler, but he should be motivated because, he could get he got a $40 million contract. You win 10 games. Forget about 14. I think Sam won 14 games. I don't forget about you won 10 games. And they won 9 last year. He can be back to making $40 million.
I don't get how they go broke. It's not even that hard to keep that money. I mean, if you put $10 million,
I just saw Diggs is broke. Somebody was just saying Diggs is broke.
I mean, if you take, some of this money and you put it in the safest asset class you can, you get government bonds.
I don't think
5%. I mean, you're making $500,000 a year in some cases. Just from bond return. You don't even have to put it in a risk asset.
I don't think they're doing that, Zander.
Clearly not. I guess not. I'm not really sure why not. You would think they would talk to some people who know what they're doing. All good there. I'm not going to tell them what to do or how to spend their money. They're all grown men. But interesting stuff. All right, John. So, are you predicting the Cowboys to win the East?
Am I? Such a big question. They have such a big question. Their defense is the same as the Eagles. There's so many questions. And their offense is sort of like the Eagles' defense. It's going to be good. It's just a matter of how good. So very similar teams, just on different sides of the football. I mean, bottom line is I think it's going to come down to their 2 games against each other. If somebody sweeps, they're going to win the division. And if they split, which is what I expect, it's going to come down to a tiebreaker. So, I mean, it's going to be that close. And it would not surprise me if the Cowboys win. But I'm not going to put my NFC East prediction on there May 21st. But I'll lean towards the champion. You got to beat the champion.
I agree.
You got to beat the man to be the man, whatever Ric Flair says. You got to be. So, I mean, the Eagles have done it twice in a row, and they're the more proven commodity. But I do think the Cowboys have a chance to win the division.
And then the West, John, is very interesting to me this year. I think any of those top 3 teams could win it. I really do. I think Seattle takes a step back, so I don't think they're going to win it. I think it'd be between the Rams and the Niners, at least in my eyes. And I'd probably give the slight edge to the Rams. But both aging teams a little bit. San Francisco, obviously, the big question there will be if their best players can make it to the end of the year. They are an older roster. LA does have some younger talent, but still is a lot of older talent as well. How do you see the West shaking out?
Yeah, I'm sticking with the champs.
Are you?
Yeah, because they have a great defense, and that's not going anywhere. They're younger on offense. Because I do think I don't. San Francisco's not, to me. It's Seattle or the Rams, and the Rams I think are slightly more talented, but the Rams. They have the MVP, obviously, but they're the ones with the old quarterback. And remember last year when Matthew was having back issues and they were like, is he even going to play this year? You never know when things happen when you're 38, 39, whatever he is. But I mean, they're a very good team. I think Seattle is more consistent and they will be more consistently good. And I'm not worried about losing Kenneth Walker because of the Super Bowl. I mean, his career had been a disappointment. I mean, Zach Charbonnet was the better back of the two. And he'll be healthy. And they drafted Jadarian Price, So I mean, again, people overrate. He had a good Super Bowl. Okay, what do you do the rest of his career there? It's a bit of a disappointment. So I'm not worried too much about that. And their defense is just so consistent from week to week. I think their floor is very high, remains very high. And then you have all the Darnold haters, which I'm obviously not one. I mean, all the guy does is freaking win. We talk about with Jalen Hurts, all he does is win freaking games.
I do think it's fair. I mean, people give Jalen a lot of credit for the winning record, and they say they don't care about the stats. Well, that's fine, but
he's got good stats, by the way, on top of it.
He does. He does.
31 freaking wins over 2 years on 2 different teams.
If you started the franchise right now and you had your pick between Jalen Hurts and Sam Darnold, who would you take?
Neither.
Not the question, J-Man.
That's a good question. Who would I say? I mean, I would prefer to play a different style of offense so people are going to take this the wrong way. I would take Sam. It's easier to build an offense around Sam. Similar to why, people are not a lot of people play the way the Eagles had played. And by the way, the Eagles are no longer planning on the way they play because it's so difficult to do. I mean, in a lot of ways, they're validating my point. They don't want to play that way anymore. They've come to that conclusion. So I think it would be, I'm building a team from scratch. I think it would be easier to build around Sam. That's why I would lean towards Sam.
All right, fair enough. All right, John, anything else stick out here in the South? Will any team in the South get to a winning record this year? I don't know. I got the Saints winning the South, John.
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, any of those 4 teams can win. I like I said, I think Atlanta has the most talent. They have Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts.
I like Kellen. I'm going Kellen and Tyler Shuck, Johnny Mac. You like Tyler Shuck coming out of college?
Yeah, I thought he was the one, second, third, the one later round pick that maybe could develop. And we'll see. I mean, people are going to now game plan. They're going to have more film. They spend the offseason. I'm taking Atlanta just because they have the most talent, and hopefully one of the quarterbacks can not screw it up. Boy, I'd love to see them with a big time quarterback. You got Bijan Robinson,
I know,
Kyle Pitts, Drake London. They'd be a Super Bowl contender with.
Well, let's be real. That was the dumbest thing they ever did, drafting Penix. Even if the player, I mean, it just didn't make sense when they did it at the time. Number 8 overall, you could have got him way later. I don't think anybody wanted them that high, and they had just paid Kirk Cousins. That was weird.
Yeah, it didn't make sense.
Who was the GM at the time? I forget that guy's name.
Who?
Terry something? Who was the GM of the Falcons when they made that move? Terry something?
Terry Robisky.
No,
who was their GM?
Falcons GM who drafted Penix. Yeah, Terry Fontenot. That's it.
Terry Fontenot, yeah.
Yeah, remember there's the video of him talking to Arthur Blank right after they made the pick, and Arthur Blank's like looking at him.
Well, they got a weird setup now. I mean, Ian Cunningham, who's an ex-Eagles employee, is the GM, but Matt Ryan is the top football executive. So they got a weird, Arthur Blank hasn't been the greatest owner in the world. They've had a weird setup, and they continue to have a weird setup. But, I mean, they've gotten some good players over the years. And, even this year, they brought in Jahan Dotson, which is not going to excite people. But they also have Olamide Zaccheaus, who had a decent year, and they drafted Zachariah Branch. That's in addition to Drake London, who's a big-time player. And again, I think Bijan Robinson is the best running back in football.
Wow, you got number one?
Number one.
Okay.
Because I think he's capable of handling more than Jahmyr Gibbs from just a volume standpoint. Obviously, I don't like the quarterback situation. You got Pitts and Austin Hooper. So they can do things there. And defensively, I mean, it's a work in progress, and they have that lunatic pass rusher who's probably not going to play. And he's a good pass rusher, but I don't know what's going on with him from a legal standpoint. So they still need some work to do on defense. But in that division, man, if you get competent quarterback play, you're going to win 9 games and win the division. And it'll probably go back to being Tampa. But now I think Tyler Shuck's going to have a bit more trouble this year because people are going to adjust. That's what they do with young quarterbacks. And now they know what he does well, and they're going to make things difficult for him, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. All right, good stuff in the NFC. Overall, I think there's going to be some good stuff happening in the NFC this year. The North still looks really good to me. I almost feel like all those teams could be good. I think Chicago does take a step back, but you pointed out Detroit. Minnesota is interesting because they won 9 games with JJ, McStiff and Carson Wentz. Now they got at least Kyler Murray who can play a little bit. That's going to be interesting. I think the NFC is actually a pretty good conference this year. We will see what that looks like moving forward. Good stuff there. Appreciate everybody being here today. That's our NFL segment here today. We got about 30 minutes left in the show today. John, dare I hit you with a list? Will you partake in a list this morning, or will you kill your power on the house and dip out of here?
I can't control the power, but I will do my best to not laugh at the list.
All right. Well, this is what the list was. Sills and I did it yesterday. We ranked, and we don't have to do as many as Sills and I did. We ranked quarterbacks based on talent alone. So if you could just do like an NFL draft of the quarterbacks off of talent alone, I know it's hard because everybody gauges that a little bit differently.
Yeah, it's like,
but
what is talent? What's your definition of talent?
But I'm looking for the John McMullen definition. That's the point of me doing it. I want to know what your definition.
Well,
you just talked about Darnold and Hurts, and you're like neither, and I think that's the right answer. But what does John gauge the talent as? What does that look like in McMullen's eyes? Not my eyes or Cilio's eyes. McMullen's eyes. I think that's valuable.
Well, It depends on the player. I mean, I believe in building around the player's talents. I believe in the Bill Parcells comment. Don't tell me what they can't do. Tell me what they can do, and then we'll build around the offense. So I kind of look at it as, well, how much can they do? And that's why I picked Herbert when we said, well, who would you build around?
Right.
Right now, that would be my top guy.
Herbert was number 2 on mine, so not that far off.
Because Burrow is injured all the time. Burrow would be number 1. But I mean, it is what it is.
Misses a lot of games. Yeah.
Yeah. And he'd still be high. I don't know how high. I'm trying to think. Patrick would still be high, but I do think we've reached the descent portion of the program there, but he's still going to be high. I probably still have what are we trying to do? Win immediately or win?
I just no, I don't want to gauge any of that. I want to gauge who you think the most talented quarterbacks in football are. I think my top 5 are this. Josh Allen, I think I had 1. I had Justin Herbert 2. I think I put Mahomes 3, even though I debated with Lamar. I put Burrow 4, and then I put Lamar 5. And then I think 6, I had Stafford. 7, I think I had maybe Caleb, or maybe Caleb Williams was 8 or 9. It kind of gets a little tough after 7. But that was what mine looked like. I don't want you to mock mine, obviously.
Well, if we're just doing pure talent and age, like I wouldn't put Stafford as high because of his age, but I haven't seen a decline. Like I've seen a decline from Aaron Rodgers. I haven't seen a huge decline from Matthew Stafford, a little bit from just the arm talent standpoint, but he would be very high. Just as everything a quarterback can do. And that's why he's winning the MVP at 38. I would still pick Herbert first because he can do everything. Then I pick Burrow, then probably Stafford. Then probably Mahomes, then Josh Allen. Josh Allen's always been a little bit too reckless for me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. But pure talent, I was just like, man, that guy can run, he could throw, he could hit, he could do a fucking everything. But I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, but he's also never been the most accurate guy in the world.
No, you remember coming out of Wyoming, it was like a big problem for him.
Yeah. And he's gotten – you usually don't see that upgrade, people improving accuracy. But you saw against the Eagles, man. That's a win. And I don't know where the fuck he threw that ball. Like, how does that happen? Just an awful throw.
Yeah, airmailed that sucker.
You don't see that with, guys who don't have accuracy problems. And then Caleb would be up there. God, he holds onto the ball, though. Drives me insane. But just from a talent standpoint. And then Jordan Love, he'd be up there. There's probably be the bottom 10 guys. And I'm not a big Drake May fan. I don't know.
Where'd you put Caleb? Did you put Caleb? Sorry,
Caleb's in there.
Did you have him like 7, 8?
Yeah, 6 or 7. I wasn't counting. I was hoping you were counting. And then that's the top tier. Then you're down to tier 2. I'd put Drake May as the last one. Not as high on him as some people. But maybe I was, because he played so poorly in the playoffs and he was hurt. Maybe I'm being too hard on him. We'll see. But those are your probably Drake May's the last of your tier 1 guys.
I don't even know if I'd put him tier 1. I mean, if tier 1 includes Herbert and Lamar and people like that, I don't know that I.
Well, you can make 2 tiers out of that. I don't mean in the same. I just mean from a talent perspective.
Right,
I mean,
right.
And then you have a pretty significant drop off to probably Dak would lead the next group. Still put Goff in there. Jalen would be in there. Trevor Lawrence, which is a disappointment. I thought he was going to be really, really good. Still put Aaron in there because he knows how to fucking play, which is half the battle. Darnold, Baker. That's the second group. And then you're into basically the shit group after that, to be honest. Then you're into the Bryce Youngs of the world.
I think
Bryce
would be better if he was just a little taller. I think he does have a lot of great talent.
Yeah, I mean, Kyler's the same category, too.
Yeah, kind of right.
I should have put Bo Nix in tier 2. But I was just
I had Dak pretty. Where I don't know where you put Dak. I had him pretty high.
He was number 1 in tier 2.
Tier 2.
Daniel Jones would have to be in there, but I don't know what he's going to be health wise.
How about Jaden Daniels? I had him, I think, right.
Oh yeah, I forgot Jaden Daniels. Yeah, he's tier 1. I forgot Jaden Daniels.
You think he's tier 1?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking talent. He is immensely gifted. He's in the Caleb Williams territory. Like, same thing. It's like, but he's a little bit more refined than Caleb Williams. He is immensely gifted.
I don't think he's got the arm talent that Caleb Williams does. Caleb Williams makes some throws that I'm like,
well, I mean, he's got, well, Caleb throws some, he throws some far balls, I call them, that nobody else can throw. But, as far as functional football throws.
Yeah, that's fair.
Jaden Daniels is better. So I should have put him in the top grouping. But would you take
Jaden over Caleb?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think Caleb Williams is a shit show from a technique and understanding how to play the position standpoint. He is a legit shit show. He's just more talented than, like, he's complete. His whole success level is based on being more talented than everybody else, and that tends to evaporate quickly,
especially at the NFL level. But does Ben help him develop? I mean, he obviously had a better year 1, but the completion percentage was horrible. So he's got to get better, no doubt. But I do think Caleb can, if he can rein it in a little bit, John, with some of that stuff, look out. I think he's going to be really good.
Well, he's got everything, but it's interesting. His accuracy was actually down from his rookie season, pretty significantly down with Ben Johnson. When it's supposed to be easier, he just holds on to the ball. So, and it's ironic because he doesn't run that much, really. He's always looking to throw the ball. He's only extending plays to throw the ball. And when he flushes right and he just throws that rope down, that's the throw that, like, nobody else can make. It's like, all right, this play's over. And then he throws a rope 30 yards down the field and somebody's doing a toe tap. He did that 4 or 5 times last year. So he's definitely gifted. I always talk about real number 1 overall picks. He was a real number 1 overall pick. Like, Cam Ward, not a real number 1 overall pick. Fernando Mendoza, not a real number 1 overall pick.
I knew that was going.
Caleb Williams is a real, legit number 1 overall pick.
And Jaden was arguably a number 1 overall pick too. That didn't go number 1 overall, but was that type of player.
Yeah.
You think the hype on this upcoming class is too heavy right now? Feels like it's a lot.
Yeah.
Of hype. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Everyone's talking about this, like, the quarterback class of the century. I'm like, all right, let's see how that pans out.
If Arch Manning's name was Arch Robinson, Arch Krause, Arch McMullen, he'd be a 3rd-round pick right off the bat. If CJ Carr didn't play at Notre Dame, he'd be a 3rd-round pick. The Oregon kid, he might, he might be legit. I'm
not a huge fan,
but I haven't seen enough of him. Those are the 3 guys I think of at the top. Who else is there? Who am I missing?
I don't think you're missing it. I mean,
but no, I mean Arch Manning is. If his name wasn't Manning, I mean he was brutal.
Daz says Sellers. Daz likes Lenora Sellers.
Ooh,
yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
I'm not going there.
I mean, he's athletically gifted, and the kid from Ole Miss who's playing a 57th season in college. Give me a break with that.
Yeah, right.
No way is he a top-tier NFL quarterback. I mean, Sellers is athletically gifted, but no, he's got a long way to go. So yeah, I don't think Dante's more is the one guy who I think could be a legit top 5 pick. And Arch will be, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't bet on Arch Manning.
No, me neither. We will see. We will see, Johnny Mac, what happens with that. All right, good segment there on the quarterbacks. I just wanted to do it real quick here and see what Johnny Mac thought of the talent conversation at the quarterback position. I know sometimes that ruffles some feathers, but I think John was mostly on point per usual there with Johnny Mac. We got one super chat we will get to here right now. Here's Niall. We are definitely keeping Jalen Hunt over Speed Racer. They've already dubbed a nickname for him now, Johnny.
Racer. Yeah, I thought that was already the case. I think this is just another thing you add into the decision-making process, and it leans towards Jalen Hunt. So, but I mean, there's time to turn it around, but. Yeah, I've already thought before this latest issue that Jalen Hunt would likely be the guy they re-signed, and I think so even more today.
Yep, me too. We will see what happens with that. Now, good stuff. We did talk about that. If you guys missed it, we did talk about the Nolan Smith incident in the opening segment. He was arrested last Friday in Georgia for speeding, going 135 into 70, which is obviously just reckless and careless and stupid. I did see somebody in the chat. I think it was Kenny. Kenny, if you're still here, you let me know. Who said he lives down there in Georgia. That is an area where it's super rural and kind of just a highway and nothing. So I'd like to believe that Nolan just had some open road and kind of opened up the car and maybe didn't see a cop and there was nobody in danger or anything. But anytime you're going that fast on a public road, obviously that is a dumb decision. So Nolan, we will see what happens with him. Appreciate everybody being here. Here's Anthony Hunt. Zander, what numbers do you need from Hurts? I don't know if it's about numbers. I think it's more about the offense, doing what they need to do to give the team a chance.
Everybody loves numbers. We'll give that to Jeff Kerr. He'll tell you. He'll tell you the numbers. I mean, his numbers were better last year than the year prior. So I don't know why everybody's obsessed with numbers, unless you are playing fantasy football. I mean, he threw for 3,200 yards last year versus 2,900 in the Super Bowl season. He had 25 touchdowns versus 18. Only had 6 interceptions versus 5, so it wasn't up dramatically. So I don't know if it's about numbers. Well, I know it's not about numbers.
Yeah, I mean, what's it about to you? The ball coming out on time, getting into the
Yeah.
right play, doing the things that you have to do in this off. It's hard to project when you don't really know what the offense is going to look like. I mean, John, you've talked about how you don't think they're going to change as much, which you're probably closer to the truth, to be frank, but they have to do something different in the passing game, right? Like, all right, if they don't run hitches at the highest rate in the league again, what does that look like? Is there slight more variation? Like yesterday, I love what you said, where you said it's the same 7 concepts, and it's, the makeup on it is different every time, and that's part of where the illusion of complexity comes into play. Well, what does that look like for Mannion in this offense? Can they add that? Can they do that? Do the Eagles have the ability to do that? To me, that's what they should do. Got to look a little different. I'm not saying turn him into something he's not, but there's got to be something you can do to provide a spark to that passing game.
Well, I think, dressing it up differently, you're trying to stress the defense. You're trying to test their discipline. Problem is, Jalen is more comfortable with less movement. Can you get him more comfortable with more movement? That's going to be a task for Sean Mannion. Like there's a lot of quarterbacks who like to get, Derek Carr was doing, one of our listeners, Derek Carr had a good clip about playing quarterback, and he's a guy who had a lot of responsibility at the line of scrimmage, and it was a really good video. I'll try to find it. I retweeted it or reposted it, but it was a couple of days ago. He had a really good explanation people should watch about just how much a quarterback has to do before the snap in 40, an amount of 40 seconds. There's so many different things. And part of that is movement. Like if you're going to have a lot of movement, well, that impacts how much time you have to look at the defense, how much time you have to kill plays. We talked about Jeff Stoutland talking about running poor plays and running bad plays into, against defenses and not changing the look. That impacts that. All of it impacts it. And then you have certain guys like Phillip Rivers being the most notable example I use because, Nick Sirianni had a history with him. Did not like motion because he wanted to be at the line of scrimmage evaluating what he saw, and he had the ability to do it. Now, some younger quarterbacks, you have to use motion and movement to give them information. They can't get it formationally. And they have to see how the defense reacts to the movement. Jalen Hurts is in the category where he hasn't liked it. Is he going to just acquiesce and say, all right, and how does that look on the back end? Is there going to be a bunch of delay of games early in the season? Is there going to be a bunch of false starts because people are getting antsy as that clock winds down? We're going to see all this stuff. But I can't find it as I'm looking for it, but I'll try to put it up later today when I do find it. But it was a good explanation of just how much a quarterback has to do before you even snap the ball. And I think, a lot of people don't understand, to be honest, just how much is going on. And every little thing affects how much time you have to get out of a bad play into a good play. So it's one of those be careful what you wish for situations.
I think this is a good follow-up question here from Anthony Hunt, because John, if you remember when they did win the Super Bowl that year, the question was, as they were winning and getting closer, was, boy, is this margin of error too small? Can they win this way at the biggest level? Anthony Hunt says, would you say we can still win running first?
Well, you need the offensive line clicking at the level they were clicking on. Is that going to happen? Probably not. So you do need to get better in the passing game. Question is, do you have the ability to do that with no A.J. Brown? And they'll get better to a certain level, as I said, because I just think that guys who had poor seasons will bounce back to a certain degree. But no, I don't think they're going to rush for 2,504 yards again. So,
but being a run first team, you still think they can go the distance, even if it's not 25?
Well, you saw how small the margin of error was at 25-04. So, again, if that Rams game turns a different way, we're having a completely different offseason.
Right.
Now it ended well, so everybody forgets that. But yeah, I think it's very difficult to win that way. And they had a historic offensive line play. Are they going to have a historic offensive line play again? Probably not. Probably not. It's not a good bet, I would say. But so, but there's so much that goes into improving the passing game that they can improve it even without A.J. Brown. Like one of the simplest things they can do is stop being so damn risk averse. I say all the time. Now it's slippery slope because if you start turning the football over, but I do think they've beaten out some of the willingness to take chances and have a big time passing game. Guess what? You got to let it rip sometimes. And they really rarely do that. And the only time they do it is when it's safe. And those are the, go routes down the sideline, which they're very good at. But they're not going to be as good without A.J. Brown on those things. Yeah, I guarantee you that.
I know that. Here's 2 nights, 06. Thanks for the super chats, everybody. Appreciate it all for the little off-season love here. What are we, 5 days out, 4 days out from OTAs? 5 days, I think. Here's 2 nights. What does a successful season look like for Jalen Hurts?
Oof. We got another 2-hour show. Yeah, that's not a simple answer. But first of all, he's got to learn the new offense. So he's got to learn the playbook and be meticulous about it. And for a quarterback, that means not just your own responsibilities, every receiver, every running back, every offensive lineman. What are they supposed to do on every single play? That's why it's the toughest job in sports. And then you get when we talk about some of the stuff at the line of scrimmage. Well, are you setting the protections? Or is Cam Jurgens going to set the protections? Well, I guess we'll know. It's probably half and half as it has been. So you got to set protections. You got to identify the mic. You got to identify the coverage before the snap or what you think it's going to be. Maybe you got to slide the offensive line one way or another way. Maybe you got to kill from run to pass or pass to run. And then when you snap, you can, pre-snap read. Where's the pre-safety? Is it too high? Is it single high? Is it quarters? Maybe you don't know that. So maybe you need motion, which is what this offense is about, to give you information. So you find the fish on the defense. Or what are they in? Then you got to make that. Sometimes if you're Vic Fangio, the whole idea is to disguise it, be pre-snap, and make them wait to post-snap to figure out what coverage they're in. Whether it's match man, whether it's quarters, whether it's single high, whether it's cover 2, cover 3, cover 6, cover 8. Hot routes, which have been brutal for this team. You got to get those involved. So you got to learn to be the chemistry with it should be there with Devontae, but you got to learn it with Mekhi Lemon and Dontavian Wicks. And while all of this, by the way, you still got to be sharp with your mechanics and your footwork and all that. I mean, and that's like just a small condensed version of what a quarterback has to do on every stinking play and why it's such a difficult job to do, especially with defenses now who have all equipped and their whole goal is to mask and disguise what they're doing. So you either have I call them the havoc defensive coordinators who do the amoeba stuff like Flores, or the Vic defensive coordinators who make everything look like a shell coverage to start and then spin off into the real coverage after the snap. So good luck, Jalen.
Well, we'll see, Johnny Mac. I think it's going to be better than it was, but we have to find out how good it will be. Couple minutes left to go on the show today. Appreciate everybody for the super chats. All right, good segments today. Talked a little NFL, talked a little defense, talked a little offense, and we talked a little Nolan Smith, obviously, who had an incident last week. Nolan, come on, man, be smarter than that. I would hope you would have learned your lesson already from some of your teammates. I am not one to want to indict you for life, like some people I think will, but you can't make dumb decisions like that. Nolan did make a dumb decision. John, we got a couple minutes left to go on the show today. That's kind of the fear, right, of every team, John, at this point in the offseason. You don't want the phone to ring about a player when you're at this point of the offseason, and it did happen here for the Eagles, first time in a long time.
Yeah, it could have been worse. I mean, obviously, there's been much more difficult incidents than this. And, if our commenter was right and it's a rural area, that makes it a lot better. If you're just, gunning 137, although you should be able to outrun the cops at 137. But what do I know? It is what it is. Like you said, it's a dumb decision, but it could have been much worse. Hopefully he learns from it, but there seems to be a systemic problem in that Georgia program that Kirby Smart should deal with or make, and I'm sure he has tried, but, and if that means, I think it's a bigger Georgia problem than it is an Eagles problem. The Eagles will do what they're going to do, but and they'll make the decision of, are they going to extend him, which I thought they probably weren't before this incident, and it probably makes it less likely after the incident.
Yeah, I don't know if they're all getting the cars, from playing at the high profile University of Georgia or what, and they're just but I don't know. It is weird how the trend is like all these Georgia guys it happens to. They've obviously built a bad reputation for the program with it, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just Georgia. I mean, we have
it's all over, but it does seem to happen at a higher rate, obviously.
Oh, no, it definitely does.
Yeah.
I mean, Ruggs went to Alabama. Rashee Rice went to, where'd he go? SMU. So, it's a culture thing, I think, more than anything else. But, yeah, Georgia's had a big, big problem with it.
No doubt about it. All right, Johnny Mac, your final thoughts here on the Thursday edition of the program.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of good discussion today. And hopefully we have more discussion tomorrow. No official word yet, but I do expect to talk to some people today. So hopefully we'll have more stuff to talk about tomorrow.
Good stuff. Johnny Mac, appreciate it. We'll see if that happens today. Thanks for doing it, J Mac, and we will catch up with you tomorrow, brother.
All right, thanks all.
All right, thanks, Jim Mac. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen here on Birds 365. Appreciate him doing it today. Not a lot of time for me on Zander time today. I got quite a bit of stuff going on in the afternoon. I'm like a month out from this wedding. You know what that means? It means I got a bunch of shit to get in order here that I am now doing. And, I am not I'm not a type A person. All right. I'm sure some of you listening might be type A. I'm not a type A guy. Like, it's just not the way I roll. So, you get that a little late and you got a lot of shit to get done. So it is what it is. But I'll take a couple comments from all the great people of JAKIB Nation, particularly on Nolan Smith. I know I talked about it with John, but what do you guys think of Nolan Smith? It's always a tough situation for me because one thing I don't like doing, and I know I've been guilty of this in the past, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I have done it, and sometimes it kind of comes to territory, but like, I don't know. I don't want to like shit on the dude to the point of like, oh, wow, what an at. But, we do have a responsibility, in life. I think to be responsible human beings, to be responsible civilians, to not put, the general public in danger and stuff like that. So it's tough for Nolan. It's not like the guy did something that, is so out of the ordinary or is so horrible that, he should be deemed a bad guy or a bad person. But, dude, you got a lot to lose, man. Like, the world is your oyster, brother. You got a $14 million fully guaranteed contract for next year. You're on the brink of making 50, 60, 70, 80, $100 million in your career. Like, dude, the car ain't worth it. 135 on the freeway ain't worth it. Go to the track. You can get a membership at a track nowadays. I promise it's cheaper than the fines you're going to pay for what you got into here. So, it's a tough thing because like these are young dudes and obviously, we've all made our mistakes in a row. How many mistakes have you made if you're listening in life, right? Believe me, I've made my fair share, and I will not sit up here and tell you that I don't. I have my fair share of mistakes I've made in my life, but you got to be responsible. You got to be a responsible adult. You got to be a responsible player. You got to be a responsible person. You got to be responsible to the organization that you're a part of. And obviously, a lapse in judgment here for Nolan Smith. And what I'd like to believe and hope is what Kenny was talking about. Kenny, I don't know if Kenny's still in here, but Kenny mentioned like he lives down there in Georgia, and he knows that county well. And that county is kind of rural, and maybe it's just a damn highway in the middle of nowhere. And he was, 10:18 at night, the highway was empty and he opens it up. Believe me, I drive a fun car. I understand. I do. I understand. And maybe it was, nobody on the road and there's a cop sitting there with his lights out, pitch black at night. And he didn't see him and he gets nabbed going way over the limit after a fresh pull. But, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for sure. Right? So you're right. He wasn't drunk. It could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse. So, yeah, man, that's true, dude. You hit a deer going that quick, you're fucking toast. It depends what kind of car he was in. If he was in a low riding car, though, it would have just popped the deer right up into the air. Actually, you guys want to hear a nuts story? One of the craziest stories I think I've ever heard. Give me 1 sec, 5. One of the craziest stories I've ever heard. A young kid, a high school kid in my area, went to LaSalle. Went to LaSalle High School. If you're in the area, you probably know what LaSalle is, but not the college. He went to the high school. He was driving on the road, not speeding, nothing. The car in front of him hit a deer. The deer popped straight up into the air, landed on his windshield, and killed him. 17-year-old kid. 17-year-old kid. Person in front of him hits deer. Deer pops up into the air. Deer falls on his car behind him. Kills him instantly. I mean, you hear stories like that, and you know what I say? I say this to my fiance all the time. When the good Lord wants to bring you home, the good Lord is going to bring you home. And in a way, I take some solace in knowing that, because that is a nuts story. So, I'm with you, Brandon. I'm with you, Brandon. Get a membership at a track. It's worth it. Bonnie, shut your bitch ass up. Like I don't have enough anxiety without that crazy. I know, Keith. It's nuts, dude. It's nuts. But at the end of the day, like I said, Keith, when the good Lord calls me home, so be it. All right. So be it. That's true, man. It's true. Anything can run out. All right, guys, I got to run. I do not have a lot of time. I got so much crap going on here. I have a meeting early. I got a meeting in the afternoon. I got to rush home to try and make it for Cilio. So it is what it is. But John says you can still dive the track. No doubt, John. But at least you do it in a responsible manner, and you go to a place that's dedicated to you to drive fast. You know, you don't do it with civilians and things of that nature on a public road. So, you know, that's always the better way to go. But everything in life has inherent risk, by the way. Literally, walking, as I just mentioned, walking out of your house, you have inherent risk. Crossing the road, you have inherent risk. Driving a car, inherent risk. Flying a plane, inherent risk. Whatever. You leave your home, sitting in your home, you got risk. All right? You could have a heart attack. You could have, again, I don't want to be glim on you. I'm just saying it's like, exactly, Brandon. Life, in a way, is a risk, and that's part of what makes it beautiful. So, all right, guys, love all you guys. Hit that like button. See you next time, everybody. Appreciate all you.
EAGLES. Eagles.